welcome. For me, I must say, it is a great privilege to be here. I think that my once-a-term teaching at the Royal Academy of Music, dealing with the composers there, just demonstrates to me how much there is to learn from those extremely talented young composers. And I think that an opportunity like this that NMC gives to these very, very deserving and talented young composers, it is not only for me, but for all of us, a chance to learn, a chance to come into contact with something which is vibrant and alive. And I do feel all these composers I'm always coming into contact with, some of them, they really do feel that it is a hell of a job to break through and to get anybody to take any notice of them. And I'm very moved and very touched that this wonderful opportunity is presented to these young people to get their work out there. And there's no business card better than a compact disc for a composer. It doesn't half impress people, and they get a long way on it. And I know that these composers, they will get more performances, more commissions, more recognition, just by having that disc. And I feel that this is one of the very few bright, really bright things that have happened where commercial pressures are very, very strong. Here we don't have that. NMC doesn't have that. But one feels it from recording companies, from publishers, from even the attitudes which some young composers seem to just take in from their environment, that they're part of the music industry and not part of the musical profession, which is a very different thing. And that freedom they must have to be a part of a creative musical profession and not to feel those dreadful commercial pressures which so many of us, thank goodness I don't, never have done, I've been spared that, but these commercial pressures which are behind them, from having to pay back money for their education, to having to earn money for whatever reason, when they don't get the grants that they used to get, they don't get the scholarships they used to get to study. These things have made it very, very tough for a lot of young musicians, particularly young composers. And I'd just like to say one thing, which I think is very, very serious. Coming from my background, had I been born much later and been going into the Royal Academy or to university now, and I would have had to have borrowed money in order to do that, my parents would have said, no, it is immoral to borrow money. You never do it. And I wouldn't have had the education. And I feel at the Royal Academy that since music in state schools has been so downgraded that we have an intake there which is basically not working class. And people like John Ogden, Harrison Birtwistle, Elgar Houth, and I wouldn't have had a look in. I say that just as a rider by the by. And to come back to my main point, I am so pleased that NMC gives composers this opportunity, no matter what their background, what their money or no money is, they are there for the quality of their work. And it gives them hope, it gives them something to strive for, and it gives a feeling that in a very commercial age, there is something worth striving for, which goes beyond that, and which is for quality and which stands for the very best in a musician, in a composer, for which we all strive. This idea of working with art students, I think it's wonderful. I know that when I was a student, I learned so much from art and architecture students, particularly when I was studying in Italy. And also, I think these days at the Royal Academy, for instance, they have chance to work with cinema, with ballet, with modern dance. I think this cross-fertilization is absolutely essential. It always happened in the past. These days, people seem to live in little artistic compartments unless you give them a push and shove them together. And I think that's very bad and very dangerous. And so this aspect of cross-fertilization between the arts, hooray for that. Where would I be without having studied architecture, for instance? I wouldn't have the architecture in my music that I have. It would be impossible to have thought that through without knowing quite a lot about Michelangelo and Borromini and Brunelleschi and the rest of them. Very important, cross-fertilization. Let's go for quality. And thank you, NMC, for going for hope, standards, quality, and non-commercial enterprise. Thank you.